7. Marriage. On my first day in New Delhi, I climbed up several stories of increasingly rickety stairs to the hostel roof, and spent hours trying to use a spaceship-like washing machine to wash my dirty clothes. The small bag I was living out of only held enough clothes for a week, and it had been 2 weeks since I had washed them. They had blood stains, dust from Jerusalem, dirt from the banks of the Ganges. In the old city, and in the Rishikesh markets, you could buy vials of this holy dust and dirt. I watched it swirl and swirl in the water, wash out of my socks and down the drain. I met a girl in the cockroach-infested hostel dorm room. She told me she was in New Delhi to meet a man her mother wanted her to marry. She talked at length about her career, something officey, how after working hard for years, she felt ready to get married and settle down. I'm 29 after all. She simultaneously disapproved of me. Oh, you're a waitress. How can you afford to be here? And wanted us to be friends. Instagrams were swiftly exchanged. She set off to meet the man, wearing square-framed glasses and a plain button-down shirt that made her look like a teenager. She returned some time later. I found her sitting on her bed, teary-eyed. I was bleary-eyed from smoking hash with a brief friend on the hostel roof, but I listened as best I could. She told me the man was horrible. He had spent most of the date on the phone to his mother, who, despite setting up the date, was now suspicious that they would have sex if left alone too long. He dropped her off early, in the rain, far away from the hostel, which wasn't in a particularly safe neighborhood itself, and she had terrible trouble finding her way back. He then sent her a long text, telling her he was in love with her, that he knew he could be horrible, but this was just how he was, and he needed to be with someone who accepted that. Maybe I'll just marry him anyway. I don't want to upset my mother, and he did take the time to write that long text. I looked at her, and I felt so angry I wanted to cry. I saw myself in her, my own complete inability to understand when I was being mistreated, my own fear of being alone, my own desire to see the best in bad people. This man will treat you like this forever if you let him. He's testing you now, to see if you'll accept this behavior. You need to tell your mother he isn't a good person, and never speak to him again. She listened to me, but I don't know what she did in the end. She left that evening. Maybe she's with him now. I met a dancer on my last full day in New Delhi. She took me with her to buy a weighing scales in the labyrinthine Connaught Place markets. For the life of me, I can't remember why she needed it. We haggled and dodged hanging wires and talked about our lives. She was an accomplished classical dancer in a rare traditional Indian style. She was calm, and she made me feel calm while I was near her. She told me about her daughter. We visited the Gurudwara Bangla Sahib, a huge Sikh temple, and covered our hair with colourful bandanas from a big communal bandana box. Like me, the dancer didn't have much regard for religious decorum. She encouraged me to break the temple rules and take photos together at the Sarovar, a huge holy pool of colourful fish. We laughed and rushed away when the security man waved a stick at us. We knelt at the shrine, and I dropped some rupees into the donation box. I've always been distrustful of religious donations, but here in the Gurudwara Bangla Sahib, hundreds of volunteers spend each day cooking food that gets handed out for free to anyone who needs it. In the centre of New Delhi, where half an hour earlier I had a man living in the street show me his transparent colostomy bag unprompted, it was difficult to deny the importance of this religious work, but I still wasn't sure. The temple was maximalist, ornate, the ceiling of the shrine covered in golden fans, spinning and spinning. We left, back into the chaos of the street. I wondered, had my donation paid for the golden fans or the food? The dancer invited me to her friend's wedding, the reason she was in New Delhi. I couldn't attend, as my bus to Jaipur the next day was booked, but I was able to make the Mehendi that night. We took an auto taxi. The Mehendi was way across the city. We swerved among cows and passed a huge temple shaped like Lord Brahma, the Hindu monkey god. As we drove, she told me about her travels, most recently climbing mountains in Nepal. She told me her husband had physically abused her for years, and the intent of her traveling was to recover from this experience. I can't leave him, because in my family and my culture, it isn't acceptable. But I can try to heal myself. Way across the world, I had met someone just like me. We held hands in the rickety auto taxi. The room where the Mehendi was held was covered in paper flowers. We entered through a door of paper flower chains, and many of the guests wore garlands of real flowers around their necks. The dancer told me that the bride had tricked her family into believing her fiancé was from their caste, when he was really in a lower caste. This would be unacceptable if found out. The bride was wearing a bright orange lehenga, and made sure that I, a stranger, was fed dinner within 5 minutes of arrival. The girls there taught me how to dance like Bollywood. I twirled around and felt dizzy in the music and colour and the smell of flowers. Back at the hostel, we sat on the roof and watched fireworks go off in the distance. It was wedding season. We had seen a newlywed couple riding an elephant on our way home. The dancer was quiet. I hoped that, though trapped in her marriage, she could find peace. I hoped I could find peace too.